It was one of those brisk autumn mornings in New York City, the sky glowing a gentle pink above the awakening skyline. Most people were buried in their daily routines, rushing to catch subways, sipping overpriced coffee, and dodging one another as if moving through a practiced dance choreographed by the city itself. Like clockwork, sanitation trucks rumbled down avenues, their drivers honking at jaywalkers and cyclists darting through traffic. At a quiet intersection in Astoria, Queens' Chris Johnson was already on the job, dressed in the standard orange vest and faded cargo pants worn by city sanitation workers everywhere. He was in his early 30s, tall, strong, his arms marked by years of manual labor, but his eyes retained a kindness that made him well known in the neighborhood. For a decade, Chris had swept the same blocks, emptied countless bins, and offered a helping hand and sometimes a bit of advice to anyone who asked for directions or needed help with a heavy grocery bag. People might not have really seen him, but Chris saw everyone. "Morning, Mr. Patel. Kids running late again? Mrs. Nguyen, rain's coming. You want me to bring your plants under the awning?" His mother, Linda, a retired nurse, still woke up early to make sure Chris had breakfast before leaving. Their apartment was small, worn hardwood floors, photos of Chris and his younger brother Zach on every available surface. The kitchen table was always a little sticky, but never dirty. Chris's father had passed away when he was a boy, leaving Linda to raise her sons with love, grit, and a touch of old-school wisdom. You don't have to be rich to be someone. You just have to be good to people. Across the city in a high-rise on Central Park South, Olivia Wallace started her morning with very different rituals. She had just turned 30, her name gracing Forbes lists as one of the country's youngest billionaires. Through software innovation and shrewd investments, Olivia built a business empire that sprawled across tech, real estate, and entertainment. Her penthouse looked out onto the park, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that belonged in design magazines, her own art collection lining every wall. The fridge was always stocked, not by her, but by her staff. Every hour of Olivia's day was scheduled by her personal assistant. From board meetings with Silicon Valley titans to charity galas and power lunches. But for all the sophistication, Olivia often felt trapped behind invisible bars. Her closest friends were more like business partners, her relationships as temporary as the fashion seasons. She spent most evenings alone despite having everything and everyone at her fingertips. "I'm successful," she would tell herself, scrolling through messages and emails. But am I actually happy? One Wednesday, after a rare sleepless night, Olivia dismissed her driver. She decided to drive herself across town to a meeting about a new green initiative. Maybe it was a search for control, maybe just a craving for normalcy, or maybe a subconscious longing for something unexpected. She got caught in traffic on Broadway, decided to take an unfamiliar detour through Astoria, and found herself stuck behind a delivery truck unloading crates carelessly. Suddenly, with a crash, several boxes tumbled onto the street, scattering debris across the intersection. Drivers began honking, frustrated, impatient. Chris, sweeping the sidewalk nearby, immediately jogged over to the mess. He waved at cars to slow down, then crouched and lifted the heavy boxes, stacking them on the curb. A mother trying to cross with 2 toddlers looked nervous, so Chris walked her safely through the chaos. Without complaint, he returned to collect every bit of broken glass, then greeted the truck driver with a smile. "No worries, happens to the best of us. Let's clear this up." Watching all this through her windshield, Olivia felt transfixed. She saw not just a worker doing his job, but a man calmly putting others above himself. No grumbling, no rush. As traffic began moving again, she rolled down her window, half embarrassed, half inspired. "Thank you," she said quietly, unsure if he'd even hear her. Chris flashed his trademark grin, looked her in the eye. "Glad I could help, miss. Drive safe, all right?" She found herself thinking about those words all day. In her meeting, as executives discussed city partnerships, Olivia kept recalling the humility and strength in Chris's voice. Unlike so many she knew, he didn't try to sell her an image, he simply was. Who was he? Did anyone outside that neighborhood actually see him? The next day, Olivia determined to see more. She got up early, dressed down in jeans and a sweatshirt, grabbed a coffee from the bodega, and walked through Astoria. She saw Chris again, holding open the door for an old lady carrying groceries, picking up litter nobody noticed, laughing with kids riding their bikes. Each act was so ordinary that it verged on extraordinary. Over the next few weeks, Olivia began to stop and chat. Sometimes she asked about community events, sometimes she just listened. Chris told her stories about his family, how his mom had taught him to treat everyone with respect, how his brother Zach had just started college and was the pride of the block. He talked about New York in a way Olivia had never heard, not as a playground for the rich, but as a place where ordinary lives could matter. One rainy afternoon, Olivia lost her wallet on the street. Panicked and a bit flustered, she asked Chris for help. Without hesitation, he enlisted neighbors, retraced her steps, and found the wallet untouched at a park bench, returned by a teenager who recognized Olivia's photo on her driver's license. That simple act cemented a trust. "See?" Chris joked, handing it back. "People here look out for each other. You just gotta ask." That day, Olivia joined Chris and Linda for lunch in their cozy apartment. She met Zach, shy but ambitious, majoring in environmental science at Hunter College. Over homemade soup and bread, the conversation turned to dreams, hopes, and what it meant to live honestly. Olivia left, feeling changed. The world she had glimpsed, a tapestry of kindness, struggle, and dignity, was unlike anything she'd known in her ivory tower. That night, the city seemed somehow less lonely. From then on, Olivia kept coming back. She helped at food drives, attended local school fundraisers, and spent real time connecting with people. She watched Chris become a pillar of the community, someone whose worth wasn't measured by wealth or status, but by the lives he touched. Little did she know, a love story was beginning, one built on real connection, the kind money could never buy. A sense of anticipation began to color the early mornings for Olivia. What started as a curiosity, a distant, almost sociological interest in the world outside her penthouse, soon became a genuine commitment to understanding Chris's world. She found herself waking up before the alarm, tossing aside her silk pajamas for old jeans and sneakers, longing for that sense of groundedness she'd felt in the Johnsons' modest kitchen. The new routine offered a kind of freedom Olivia hadn't realized she was missing. She'd passed through the bustling Queens subway stations, feeling both anonymous and alive, letting the city's messiness rush over her. The rhythm of Astoria at dawn was unlike anything uptown, the Greek diners opening with the clatter of pans, bakery scents curling into the street, workers chatting in a dozen languages as they hustled their children off to school. Chris had told her, "Mornings here are like family. You might not always like each other, but you show up and work things out." It was true. No one cared about her last name or bank account. People smiled, made room on benches, offered street wisdom in passing. "Watch out, delivery bikes are ruthless today. The donut guy's coffee is stronger, but the corner deli's got fresher bagels." Olivia relished every exchange. She became a regular at the Rodriguez family diner, where Chris always stopped for his mid-morning coffee. John, the owner, ribbed Chris about his secret admirer when Olivia showed up, but quickly took a liking to her. When an elderly neighbor mentioned needing help to replace a leaky faucet, Olivia, albeit useless with a wrench, volunteered to call a plumber friend on her new contacts list. She paid for it herself, insisting it was no big deal. One Friday, Chris invited Olivia to a block cleanup event. Residents, teenagers, and even a couple of city cops pitched in, scraping graffiti, replanting flowers, collecting trash bag after trash bag. Olivia found herself with dirt under her nails, laughter echoing as she and Chris competed over who could fill a garbage bag faster. Kids from the local school took selfies with her, teasing Chris, "Yo, Mr. J, didn't know your girlfriend was famous." Afterward, everyone gathered in the park for lemonade and sandwiches. Linda, always the den mother, told Olivia stories about Chris as a child, how he'd convinced a landlord to keep an abandoned dog, how he'd organized a change drive to repair a neighbor's roof. Chris has always believed in making things just a little bit better. That's how you change the world, she beamed. As weeks passed, Olivia integrated more fully into this patchwork family. She helped organize a yard sale to raise money for new playground equipment, donated her old tech gadgets, and to much laughter, tried her hand at making cornbread from Linda's secret recipe and ruined 3 batches before finally getting it right. It wasn't just acts of charity. It was the joy in these small collaborative victories, the way people celebrated and sometimes argued and always forgave. One evening, Chris met Olivia on Steinway Street after her volunteer work. They grabbed falafel and strolled, passing neon-lit storefronts and families sharing ice cream on stoops. "I gotta be honest, Liv," Chris said, using her new neighborhood nickname. "Most people from your world peek in, pat us on the head, and then disappear. You're different." "You stick around," Olivia said nothing for a moment. "It's funny," she finally replied. "I feel more at home here than I ever did in my own place. Your world has meaning. People matter to each other," she paused. "For the first time, I don't feel like I'm playing a part." That night, Chris brought her home for a weekly movie marathon, a tradition with Linda and Zach. They piled onto the saggy couch, popcorn in hand, groaning through Zach's corny jokes and Linda's insistence on old black and white films she claimed were better for the soul. Olivia found herself relaxing, letting go. By the evening's end, she was folded into the family dynamic, teasing, laughing, sharing hopes for the future. Over time, Olivia's presence became a reassurance, not an intrusion. She brought new ideas, like a book club for teens and tech tutoring for seniors, but always listened first, never imposing. And she learned to accept help too. When she felt overwhelmed by exhaustion, Linda would send her home with a home-cooked meal, and Zach would walk her to the train. One Saturday, after a particularly long day, the entire block came together to celebrate Zach's acceptance into a summer research program at NYU. Tables were lined end to end down the street for a potluck, with music and laughter echoing into the night. Olivia danced with Chris beneath paper lanterns, the air pink with sunset. She was no longer the outsider. She belonged, but with belonging came change. Olivia's world at the top was shifting. Her absence at meetings was being noticed. Rumors trickled uptown. Is Olivia dating a city worker? Or why is she spending so much time in Queens? Some friends dismissed her new hobby as a phase, but others worried. Her personal assistant warned her, "The board's starting to grumble. Investors aren't fond of unpredictable moves. They expect the Olivia who always has it together." Olivia tried to balance her identities, the CEO and the neighbor, the billionaire and the block party helper. Yet an uneasy tension mounted. As much as she cherished her new life, she couldn't ignore the pressure building from the world she came from. Late one night, Olivia met Chris on the park bench where they'd first talked. She confided her fears. "I'm afraid, Chris. The closer I get to your world, the more I feel like I'm losing the other one. What if I end up with nothing?" Chris took her hand, calloused and steady, and squeezed gently. "You got people here who'd go to the ends of the earth for you, Liv. You saved me from being invisible. Maybe it's time you let someone save you too." In that moment, between city lights and the scent of summer rain, Olivia realized that she was standing at the edge of a great change. She didn't know what the next step would look like, but she was no longer alone. The invisible side of New York had revealed its strength and its love to her, and she was ready to fight for it. Weeks rolled by, and Olivia became woven into the patchwork of Queens. The novelty of her presence faded, replaced by genuine connection. Every morning, she joined Chris for a quick breakfast at the Rodriguez Diner, sometimes talking business, sometimes nothing at all, just sharing silence over coffee and pancakes. Sometimes Linda would join, always bringing lively conversation and motherly wisdom. Sometimes Zach would appear, groggy but determined, backpack stuffed with textbooks. For Olivia, these everyday moments became precious jewels. She'd head to fundraising events at the local church, volunteer at food drives, paint murals on the public school fence with kids from the block. She and Chris swapped stories about childhood, regrets, dreams, things money couldn't touch. Chris confessed he'd never left New York City, never even seen the ocean. Olivia told him stories of traveling the world, but admitted that she'd rarely felt truly at home. One crisp Saturday, Chris invited her to Central Park, not for a gala, not for work, just a walk, a slice of pizza, and some fresh air. They explored winding paths, watched buskers perform, tossed coins into the fountain, and made silly wishes. Olivia found herself laughing, unguarded, unashamed. Chris's easy humor made her forget about image, criticism, or the ever-present weight of expectation. They sat on a granite bench. Chris looked nervous, twiddling his thumbs. Olivia waited. Finally, he spoke. Ever feel like you're just playing the role everyone picked for you? Like you're on autopilot, and all the stuff that makes you, well, you, is trapped somewhere nobody can see? Olivia nodded, her voice soft. For years, I felt like a collection of resumes, parties, press releases. It's exhausting pretending to be someone I'm not. Out here with you, that all falls away. Chris smiled, relief flooding his face. Guess that means we're both oddballs. They laughed, and Olivia found herself leaning closer. At the park's edge, the day ended with an unexpected kiss. It was awkward, gentle, and so honest it made Olivia dizzy. Chris's hands trembled as he tucked a stray hair behind her ear. Neither spoke for a moment, letting the city's heartbeat fill the quiet. The newness of romance was electric, but not without tension. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. The sanitation guy and the billionaire. Some neighbors teased, others whispered. There were questions. Is this real? Why her? Why him? Linda welcomed Olivia with open arms, but warned her, people can be cruel, honey, especially if they feel small or scared. Chris started receiving attention at work too, not all of it good. Some co-workers congratulated him, cracking jokes about finally hitting the jackpot. Others gave him cold shoulders, suspicious envy simmering beneath the surface. He shrugged it off. Let 'em talk, he'd say, but at night he felt a pressing anxiety. Would Olivia tire of this life? Would she ever regret her choice? Olivia's friends called. Some were supportive, excited to see her living outside the bubble, but others lectured her. You're risking everything. What if people think you're slumming it? Her assistant, Jenna, sent a worried email. The board is restless, Liv. You can't skip meetings for block parties forever. You've got a brand to protect. All the same, Olivia and Chris kept building their story day by day. They navigated social media reactions, awkward family dinners, relentless curiosity from those who saw love as an anomaly rather than a miracle. At a summer block party, Chris stood beside Olivia as she handed out school supplies donated by her company. John serenaded the crowd, Zach challenged everyone to a soccer game, Linda dished up homemade potato salad. Under string lights and laughter, Olivia watched Chris transform from the shy guy sweeping sidewalks to the hero of the block. Kind, loyal, and real. I feel safe with you, Olivia whispered that night, her head resting on his shoulder. I'm not afraid anymore. But as summer faded, the challenges grew. Olivia missed important meetings. The media caught wind of her new life. The world beyond Queens began to ask questions she couldn't answer about money, legacy, and loyalty. Chris received angry texts from jealous co-workers. Olivia's phone buzzed with ultimatums from company execs. It all came crashing down after one viral headline. Tech billionaire falls for city sanitation worker. Press calls flooded in. Investors threatened to walk. Olivia's mom phoned in tears, worried about the family's reputation. Chris took it hardest. He feared being a burden, worried that Olivia would someday wake up and wish for her old life. He sat on the stoop one night, wrestling with doubt. Linda joined him, putting a hand on his shoulder. She loves you, Chris. Don't let noise from the outside drown that out. He nodded, grateful but uncertain. He wanted to believe. He needed Olivia to believe too, together. They resolved to keep fighting, to hold on to love, whatever came next. And as the city lit up for the fall, Chris and Olivia stood at the crossroads, love on one side, the expectations of two worlds on the other. It would take unparalleled courage to move forward, but for the first time, both knew the hard road was the only one worth walking. As long as they walked it together, autumn deepened in New York, and what started as neighborhood whispers soon roared into a citywide headline. The story of Olivia Wallace and Chris Johnson, the billionaire and the sanitation worker, wasn't just local news. It was everywhere. Social media exploded, picking apart every detail with a mix of marvel, mockery, and disbelief. It began when a photo from the block party made its way onto a viral Instagram account. Olivia, radiant in jeans and a t-shirt, hugging Chris in front of cheering neighbors. The caption read, "Love knows no status in Astoria." Within hours, tabloids snatched up the narrative. Tech royalty falls for city's blue-collar star. Can their love survive the New York spotlight? Podcasters speculated, morning shows debated, memes flooded the internet. For Olivia, the attention was overwhelming. Overnight, her inbox filled with interview requests. Publicists called with offers to control the narrative, and some investors quietly demanded explanations. Her board convened an emergency session. "Wallace, are you aware how this affects public perception?" An old guard director barked. The stock dipped 2 points after that photo hit TMZ. Olivia held her ground. "People need to understand that my life isn't for sale," she replied coolly, but she felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. Her mother called every night, sometimes crying, sometimes furious.
"Honey, what will Aunt Marge say?"
"Your cousins are mortified. This isn't how our family handles things." Olivia tried to reassure her, but she couldn't quell the fear inside. Chris faced his own war. On the job, co-workers alternated between ribbing and resentment. "Hey, superstar, got any stock tips from the girlfriend?" One sneered, while others avoided him altogether. His supervisor pulled him aside. "Johnson, your face is all over the news. Management doesn't need more drama right now. Keep your head down." At home, Linda watched the coverage with a defensive glare. She worried for Chris, worried for Olivia, but above all, worried that love might not be enough. "It's a jungle out there, son," she warned. "Don't let them tear you up." Zach, feeling the pressure as well, confided in Chris late one night. "Bro, my project team at NYU found out. They won't let me forget. It's nuts." But support also bloomed in unexpected places. Neighbors rallied around the couple, organizing a Love Wins mural on a nearby wall. Local schools made them their unofficial mascots, proof that you could dream big and maybe, just maybe, win. The couple started attending block meetings at night, avoiding the downtown glare. Chris became a sounding board for Olivia, and she found strength in his plain-spoken wisdom. "They can buy up every headline in the world, Liv," he told her, "but they can't buy real peace." Yet the backlash grew relentless. Olivia's colleagues sent her polite but pointed emails. "Wallace, your priorities are under scrutiny." Patents stalled, partners grew cold. And her assistant Jenna delivered the hardest truth. Some clients are pulling out, all because this love story won't die down. Feeling battered, Olivia reached out to a mentor, a former CEO who'd been through public storms. They met for coffee at a discreet corner table on the Upper East Side. "Olivia, you built your empire with grit," he said. "But love, real love, forces you to choose who you want to be, not just how you want to be seen." Days later, Olivia wrote an open letter published in the New York Times. "I choose authenticity," she declared. "I choose love, knowing it comes at a cost. To those worried about my image, my happiness can't be engineered or PR managed. I will not apologize for loving Chris Johnson. If you wish to do business with me, you accept me whole." The response was nuclear. Letters of support, hate mail, think pieces, TV segments analyzing every line of her statement. Twitter trended with hashtags like Wallace and Johnson, Love Without Limits, and more snarkily, Billionaire Goes Blue Collar. Meanwhile, Chris weathered storms on his end. Some co-workers began to soften. A few rallied, but others complained to management. "This circus puts us all under scrutiny." Chris's supervisor eventually asked for a private meeting. "Johnson, this isn't about you being a bad guy. It's about distraction. Some suits are asking if we should transfer you somewhere less visible." At home, Linda insisted that Chris and Olivia have dinner with her. She set the table with extra care, made her best meatloaf, and tried to create a sanctuary amid the craziness. "You two face enough outside," she said. "This house is neutral ground." As if to prove her right, the world outside appeared suddenly at their door. A news crew wanting an exclusive, neighbors craning for a glimpse, and even distant relatives sending advice by text. Zach Prank called a local podcast as a joke, quipping, "Maybe the next mayor should be a sanitation worker. They actually clean up messes." One evening, exhausted from dodging reporters and online hate, Chris and Olivia found themselves back at the park bench, where it all began. Olivia was silent, tears in her eyes. "Maybe my success was always about fitting in, being perfect. But I can't do this anymore if it means being empty inside." Chris put his arm around her. "You have people here who want you for you. Not your money, not your fame, just you." A slow resolve set in. Olivia chose to begin attending business meetings via video from her apartment, letting clients see her real life. Not the boardroom, but the community mural, the kitchen, the park. Some left, others leaned in. Together the couple weathered the storm, sewn tighter by adversity. They learned the cost of loving boldly in the spotlight and the cost of silence. But through it all, they knew their story was still being written. Right there in Queens, one day, one block, one act of courage at a time. As the media firestorm continued, Olivia found herself standing at an emotional precipice. Board members, investors, and even family members weighed in. Each phone call, each email, each awkward dinner was another battle in a war she never signed up for. The board demanded a private session in the company's marble conference room, bright with city views, but cold as ice when Olivia sat facing her critics. "Olivia," began Harold Bloom, co-founder and patriarch of the board, his voice a blend of disappointment and authority. "You've represented Wallace Holdings with dignity for years. Our brand is synonymous with innovation, exclusivity, aspiration. This situation with Mr. Johnson jeopardizes not only your position, but our legacy." She held his gaze. "And you think my happiness isn't part of that legacy?" Other board members shifted in their seats. Her lawyer texted her under the table, "Careful, they're playing hardball." The ultimatum was clear: end the relationship and the board would do damage control, patch deals, restore faith in her leadership. Refuse and she'd be pressured out, not just from her company, but from the empire she'd built since college. Olivia felt nauseous. She'd spent her adult life delivering results, winning contracts, leading teams through rough seas. Could she really give up her entire world just for love? Meanwhile, Chris battled his own inner storms. He was proud of his work, proud of his family, but unlike Olivia, he didn't have teams of lawyers and strategist friends. He had Linda, Zach, and a tight circle of neighbors who genuinely cared, and who now feared for his well-being. His mother gently broached the subject one night, her tone quiet but direct. "Chris, sweetheart, you've always led with your heart, but I worry you'll get left in the cold. Sometimes people from her world, they don't know how hard ours can be." Zach was more blunt. "Listen, bro, I'll have your back forever, but I just want you to be sure. People might talk for years. Are you ready for the long haul?" Chris spent long nights in thought, sometimes wandering the block, sometimes writing letters he never sent. He didn't want to lose Olivia, but he refused to stand in her way if leaving him meant safety or peace. Would she become a stranger, another casualty of New York's relentless demand for conformity and surface perfection? Everything came to a head one rainy Tuesday. Olivia called Chris, voice trembling. "They're giving me a choice," she admitted. "You or everything I've built. I don't know what to do." He met her in the park, shielding her through drizzling rain. "Liv, I'd never ask you to throw your world away. If you need to walk away, I'll understand." But Olivia shook her head, tears on her cheeks. "For the first time, I want to choose for myself. Maybe this is crazy, maybe I'll regret it, but I'd rather risk losing everything than live one more day without this hope." "You made me feel seen, Chris. You made me feel real." Chris wrapped her in his arms, holding her close. "You're braver than you know. Whatever you choose, I'm here." That night, Olivia drafted a resignation letter, relinquishing her title as CEO of Wallace Holdings. She explained her reasons in a fiery social media post, refusing to mask the truth. Sometimes the right path isn't the safe one. The highest privilege is being able to choose love. The real legacy I want is happiness. I am choosing to live. The next morning, the news hit like an earthquake. Some called it reckless, some called it revolutionary. Stock prices dipped, critics rose up, but others, especially those outside the elite bubble, rose to cheer. Block neighbors threw an impromptu party, phoning Olivia to say, "Congrats," and setting up banners between lampposts. Linda cried tears of pride, wiping them away as Zach toasted with cheap sparkling cider. Olivia and Chris began to plan a new chapter. Their focus shifted from damage control to community empowerment, supporting local businesses, launching scholarships for kids like Zach, leading renewal efforts in parks and schools. Olivia used her business savvy to connect donors and activists, working with Chris to leverage media attention toward positive goals. Neighbors, emboldened by their courage, started talking openly about struggles never shared before, about wage gaps, discrimination, broken families, and the quest for belonging. Chris became an unofficial spokesperson for dignity at work, advocating for better conditions for sanitation crews across the city. Olivia encouraged diversity and openness in tech, supporting initiatives that prioritized real people over profit. Life was simpler now, but far richer. Olivia traded designer dresses for t-shirts, and Chris led morning cleanups with pride. They walked hand in hand down Steinway Street, weathering glances from strangers, basking in smiles from friends. Newspapers sometimes still ran outlandish headlines, but the couple ignored them, building a life defined by honesty and love instead of expectations. With each passing day, Olivia learned anew that wealth was measured not in dollars, but in laughter shared at block parties, hugs from kids she once viewed as statistics. Hope that grew from the seed of real choice. Chris learned what it meant to be accepted for who he was, not what he had. Together, they felt invincible. Their story, though fraught with pain and sacrifice, became a rallying cry for others. People wrote letters, shared stories, made pilgrimages to their block just to witness the billionaire and the sanitation worker who dared to redefine what mattered. And as the harsh winds of winter began to blow, Chris and Olivia pressed forward, knowing the next steps would be as unpredictable as ever. Yet inside, they carefully rebuilt what they had lost, stronger, braver, and more in love than they'd ever been before. After Olivia's resignation, the two felt the seismic shift in their lives. Gone were Olivia's morning meetings on the 40th floor, her chauffeured rides through Manhattan, her wardrobe picked by a stylist. Now, her days began with sunlight through the curtains of a modest apartment, the din of street traffic, and Chris making pancakes in the kitchen while humming along to a Motown record. Chris continued his work undeterred, waking before sunrise to report for his sanitation route, coming home with stories from every corner. How Mr. Patel rescued a stray cat from a dumpster, how the kids on 35th Avenue made a mural out of bottle caps, how the city always felt a little cleaner after a hard rain. Olivia listened, eager for these slices of ordinary heroism. Linda flourished as a matriarch, hosting Sunday dinners that drew even more neighbors than before. The block rallied around Olivia and Chris. Their apartment was full of laughter, music, and stacks of books Olivia had collected over years of travel. Instead of charity galas, she joined in bingo nights, potluck dinners, and spontaneous karaoke parties organized by Linda. I want to hear Liv sing. She's got to know Aretha. Olivia quickly learned new skills, haggling at farmers markets, fixing leaky faucets, baking pies for school fundraisers. She donated time and resources when possible to community projects, using her tech savvy to teach coding to teens and set up job fairs for adults. Gone were the appearances in executive portraits. Now she shared progress in the block's group chat, celebrating when someone landed a new job or passed a tough class. For the first time, Olivia understood what true belonging looked like. She wrote essays for local papers, advocating for inclusion and community-led investment. Chris was asked to speak at PTA meetings, then at city forums, sharing his story about dignity in work, perseverance, and hope. News outlets continued to knock, but their story had shifted from scandal to inspiration. Their wedding, held on a mild spring afternoon, was the opposite of Olivia's family traditions. No ballooning budgets, just block neighbors, folding chairs, paper streamers. Linda made a famous sheet cake, Zach played guitar. Friends came from every corner. John and Maria from the diner, Mrs. Nguyen with her prize-winning pie, kids from the book club wearing bow ties and sunglasses. Olivia wore a vintage lace dress she'd found in a thrift shop. Chris wore a simple blue suit. They exchanged vows under a sycamore tree, promising not just love, but partnership and community. The city responded with coverage. Billionaire marries sanitation worker in Queens block bash. But to the couple, it was just their own party, their own lives beginning anew. Married life was not without challenges. Olivia missed her old team, sometimes craving the intellectual sparring of high-stakes meetings. Chris struggled with pressure. Some family members still feared he'd never be able to offer Olivia what she deserved. At times, money was tight and sacrifices were real. Olivia sometimes wondered if she'd made the right choice, questioning, doubting, measuring her life in terms of missed opportunity. But Chris always brought her back. One evening, cooking in their tiny kitchen, Olivia confessed her worry. "Did I drag you into something too big, too public?" Chris set down his spatula, looked her in the eye. "Liv, we chose this together. We are building something amazing, day at a time, block at a time. We don't have to run anymore." They found joy in the small things, evening walks down quiet side streets, sunset picnics in Astoria Park, movie nights wrapped in blankets. Olivia connected more deeply with Linda, learned family recipes, joined her in volunteering at the local senior center. Zach moved closer, bringing over friends and making the apartment feel like headquarters for every neighborhood project. The couple launched new initiatives, school renovations, neighborhood gardens, even a summer reading program open to all kids in Queens. Olivia reached out to her contacts, gathering donations, but insisted that locals take the lead. "This is your community," she said at a meeting. "I'm just lucky enough to be a part of it." Slowly, the people around them began to change. Block parties grew larger, mixed with new faces, more hopeful stories. Young couples came to Olivia and Chris, asking for advice on tough relationships, job struggles, dreams too big for tiny apartments. Olivia found herself becoming a mentor, teaching confidence even as she relearned it herself. Linda often marveled at the impact. "Look at what you two started," she'd say, bustling between casseroles and spreadsheets. "Astoria feels like a family again." One winter, when the city was hit by a blizzard, the couple organized volunteers to clear sidewalks and deliver groceries to the elderly. That night, the apartment was packed, everyone thawing out with cocoa and laughter. Olivia pulled Chris aside, whispering amid the noise, "I've never been so cold or so happy." They made a new home, simple, vibrant, filled with life. Olivia put aside her title, embracing the raw honesty of each day with Chris. They learned to waltz in the living room, watched Zach's first lecture at NYU online, celebrated every milestone together. Their story now was not about wealth, not about scandal, but about building, restarting, learning, loving. Olivia wrote, "I lost a throne, I gained a world, and no matter what headlines appeared, their block remained the center of that world, one day at a time." Together, 3 years after their wedding, Olivia and Chris had become legends in their own right, not for scandal or spectacle, but for the quiet revolution they'd sparked in Queens and beyond. Their block had transformed into a model community, visited by urban planners, social workers, and journalists from around the world who wanted to understand how love could literally reshape a neighborhood. The changes were visible everywhere. The once cracked sidewalks were now lined with community gardens bursting with tomatoes, sunflowers, and herbs. The local elementary school, once struggling with budget cuts, now boasted a computer lab funded by Olivia's connections and a reading corner where Chris volunteered every Tuesday, teaching kids that heroes came in all uniforms. The community center hosted evening classes, English for immigrants, coding for seniors, financial literacy for young families, all free, all welcoming. Olivia had found her calling in ways she never imagined. Her mornings began not with stock reports, but with coffee at the Rodriguez Diner, planning the day's community initiatives with Linda, who had become the unofficial mayor of their block. They organized everything from voter registration drives to job placement programs, turning their apartment into an informal headquarters for grassroots change. Chris's influence had grown far beyond sanitation. He'd been invited to speak at Columbia University's public policy program, sharing his perspective on dignity in labor and community organizing. His message was simple but powerful. Every job matters. Every person matters. When you see someone really see them, that's when change begins. Students hung on every word, many choosing community service over corporate internships after hearing him speak. Their love story had inspired countless others. Social media was filled with photos tagged "Drug Love Without Limits," couples from different backgrounds, economic classes, and cultures who'd found courage in Olivia and Chris's example. A documentary crew had followed them for a year, capturing not just their romance, but the ripple effects of their choice to love boldly. Zach, now graduated with honors from NYU, had started a non-profit connecting college students with community mentors. "My brother and Liv showed me that success isn't about climbing ladders," he explained to a reporter. "It's about building bridges." He'd become a sought-after speaker himself, his youthful energy and inherited wisdom drawing crowds at universities across the East Coast. Linda, now in her 60s, had become something of a celebrity in her own right. Her Sunday dinners regularly hosted 30 people, a mix of longtime neighbors and newcomers, drawn by stories of the community's warmth. She'd started a cooking show on YouTube, Linda's Kitchen Wisdom, where she shared recipes alongside life advice, often featuring Olivia learning to make empanadas or Chris attempting to flip pancakes. The show had garnered over 1 million subscribers, with comments pouring in from viewers worldwide who found hope in their simple, authentic joy. But perhaps the most meaningful change was in Olivia herself. The woman who once measured success in stock prices now measured it in smiles per day, problems solved, hands held. She'd written a book, Loving Down: How Stepping Off My Pedestal Changed Everything, donating all proceeds to community development projects. The book had become a bestseller, not because of celebrity, but because of honesty. Their 5th wedding anniversary approached as autumn painted queens in brilliant oranges and reds. The couple decided to mark it by returning to the park bench where they'd first kissed, where they'd made their hardest decisions, where they'd chosen each other over everything else. As they sat together, Chris pulled out a worn envelope. "I wrote this 3 years ago, right after your resignation. Never had the courage to give it to you." With trembling hands, Olivia opened the letter. His handwriting, careful and deliberate, filled the page. "Liv, you gave up a kingdom to build a home. You chose us when the world said we were impossible. Every morning I wake up grateful, not just for your love, but for your courage. You taught me that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they choose hope over fear. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. You made me believe in forever." Tears streaming down her face, Olivia laughed through her emotion. "You big softy. You had me at good morning in the street that first day." They walked home hand in hand, past the mural the neighborhood kids had painted of them, past the community garden where their wedding reception had overflowed, past Mrs. Nguyen's window where she always waved, home to Linda's Sunday dinner, where Zach would tease them about being disgustingly happy, where friends would argue good-naturedly about everything from politics to pizza toppings, where love lived in the details, extra helpings, inside jokes, and the confidence that tomorrow would bring more of the same beautiful, ordinary magic. As the sun set over Queens, painting their world in gold, Olivia reflected on the journey. She'd lost her title, her company, her old life entirely. In return, she'd gained everything that actually mattered, a community that celebrated her victories and supported her through struggles, a partner who saw her clearly and loved her completely, and the deep satisfaction of work that served something larger than profit. Chris squeezed her hand as they climbed the stairs to their apartment. "No regrets?" he asked, the question he'd posed countless times over the years. "Only one," Olivia replied with a grin. "That it took me so long to find you." Their story had become proof that love really could conquer all, not through magic, but through choice, commitment, and the daily decision to see the best in each other and their world. Now it's your turn to share your thoughts. What part of Olivia and Chris's journey touched your heart the most? Do you believe love can really overcome any social or economic barrier? Have you ever witnessed or experienced a love story that defied expectations? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else to choose courage over conformity. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this story with anyone who needs a reminder that true love is worth fighting for. Until next time, remember, the most impossible dreams are just waiting for someone brave enough to make them real.